Can you believe we're already into May of 2025? Holy cow. Welcome in. Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning here on YouTube with the Center Square. Good morning to those jumping into the chat room live. Those of you who may have noticed yesterday, I started the show early. It's because I had to get to the Capitol to ask Mayor Brandon Johnson some questions as he held an early news conference. Starting about 4 or 5 minutes late this morning, just because I had a lot of content I had to load up and get ready to go and queue up. So doing that here last minute. Pretty busy day yesterday, and got a lot to tackle, including hearing from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle is there as well at the Capitol. Plus, you've got several bills that are advancing at the State House that might pique your curiosity, so we'll get to some of that as well. It is, of course, the Center Square here with Illinois news that you need to start your day. Go to thecentersquare.com. Sign up for the newsletter. All right, so up there in the upper right-hand corner, click newsletter, and you can give us your email. And every morning we'll send you national headlines, Illinois headlines, headlines from other states that you may have interest in. So go check that out at thecentersquare.com. And don't forget, get the podcast of this program. If you're out traveling, but you still want to stay connected and you can't watch the live show, you can listen to us via podcasts in your vehicle while you're driving around. So look up Illinois in Focus and you'll be able to find it. It's a top-rated news podcast here in Illinois, so be sure to check that out. Okay, what we're going to tackle today, of course, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson in town, got his reaction, and Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle's reaction to the latest in the lawsuit that the Department of Justice filed against the state over its sanctuary status. We also are going to look at several bills that advanced out of the Illinois Senate yesterday, dealing with violent criminals who were convicted as children or somebody under 21, possibly having a resentencing hearing. They also look at banning styrofoam in 5 years. Plus, you've got the House advancing a task force that wants to look at migration patterns due to climate change. So we'll hear about that as well. It's right here with Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here live on YouTube with the Center Square.
Allege that we are not compliant with immigration.
That's my bad there. Forgot to turn off chipmunk mode. Give me a moment. While I get that where it needs to be. There we go. Okay, we'll start that segment over again. Hey, it's live to tape here. You get it all if you're tuning in live with the Center Square.
Allege that we are not compliant with immigration laws. And then my view is that immigration enforcement is the obligation of the federal government. Let them do their job.
That's Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle yesterday at the Illinois Capitol, taking questions from members of the media just outside the House chamber. Talking about immigration, but the Chicago and Cook County officials were in town to ask for more funding, and we'll hear a lot about that in another segment. But I was there to ask them about the ongoing battle in federal court over the state's sanctuary policies for non-citizens. Welcome back. Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Mayor Johnson, Brandon Johnson from Chicago, in Springfield yesterday, talking to legislators, meeting with leaders, and he was there to really talk about what he calls progressive revenue and the need for more money going to state coffers so that Chicago can get some. We'll hear about that. But again, went to the news conference yesterday and asked him about the DOJ's lawsuit. My question was, compare the peak of the non-citizen arrivals, as he called new arrivals, the peak during the Biden administration, and the cost, if you recall, it was $1 million a day they were spending on non-citizens. Compare the peak during Biden to, say, last week. And I had another question also about whether or not the city's less safe because of the non-citizen migrant sanctuary policies. Here's his response.
We put forth a bus ordinance that worked to regulate and bring some calm to this crisis. Remember, it was the governor of Texas that attacked the state of Illinois. Those buses did not have to come to Chicago or anywhere else. That was a conscious decision by, quite frankly, a hateful person who wanted to create division within our country. By the time we were in the DNC, there were essentially no individuals being transported to the city of Chicago. So the border control that you're speaking of actually happened under the Biden administration.
Well, the Trump administration says that they've cut down illegal border crossings by more than 90% since taking office in the past 100 days. Johnson saying that that's not true, that it was the Biden administration that did that, and the city of Chicago's busing ordinance that worked to prohibit buses coming from Texas to drop off non-citizens to a non-citizen sanctuary city like Chicago. I also asked Tony Preckwinkle about the status of the lawsuits that the DOJ has against the state of Illinois, Cook County, and the city of Chicago. And here's her response.
I think President Trump and his allies have decided that the way in which they're going to manage the federal government is to overwhelm and demoralize those who might be in opposition to what they're trying to do. And one of the challenges for us in this shotgun approach to executive orders is their focus on immigration and challenging sanctuary and welcoming cities, counties, and states. So we're being sued by the federal government, as you said.
Is there any wiggle room here to address the concerns they have? I mean, the DOJ said that one example was a Cook County detainee, an illegal alien, was released without ICE being involved, and then 17 days later is arrested for homicide.
I'm not familiar with this particular case, and we're going to fight the federal government's efforts to allege that we are not compliant with immigration law. I mean, my view is that immigration enforcement is the obligation of the federal government. Let them do their job.
And that really is the kind of nexus of the fight here in federal court, with the DOJ saying that the state, city, and county's migrant sanctuary policies are harming public safety, are a violation of federal law. But the state, county, and city is pushing back, saying that they have no obligation to assist federal immigration law enforcement, and that's their position. But you can see through the DOJ's reporting in their filings that they're pointing out they've had several instances of Illinois laws obstructing immigration and customs enforcement officials from detaining people who are in county jail. And as the question I posed there to Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle about one instance in a DOJ filing looking to ultimately hold the state accountable, they said that a non-citizen illegal alien was in a Cook County jail for a crime alleged, and then was released without ICE being able to intervene. And was later, 17 days later, accused of murder. Here's Mayor Brandon Johnson answering that question.
The DOJ says that an illegal alien was released from Cook County Jail without ICE being able to intervene, and then 17 days later was arrested, suspected of murder. How are the welcoming city policies not harming public safety?
Well, first of all, public safety is a top priority for me, like I would imagine all mayors around the state of Illinois. And violent crime continues to go down in the city of Chicago. I'm not sure if you've been able to track those numbers, but since I've been in office, there's been a precipitous decline in violence, and we're going to continue to do all that is necessary to create a safer Chicago for all. We do need Congress to actually hold the executive branch in check. We can't normalize what this president is doing. He has eroded the Constitution, and that's why there's significant lawsuits all over the country that are pushing back against the unconstitutional nature of his iniquitous form of governance.
So again, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle talking about being sued by the federal government for their migrant sanctuary policies. The federal government says obstructs law enforcement looking to detain criminal illegal aliens. And is there any room for wiggling and addressing their concerns that ICE can't get into county jails? Maybe they need to address that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Of course, wake up with us. We'll be tracking that as that case continues in federal court. The state's looking to dismiss the case. The DOJ is looking to get a summary judgment against the laws. We'll stay on top of it for you here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us 8 o'clock each and every weekday morning with the Center Square here on YouTube. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle visiting legislators yesterday, pushing for transit reform and more money. It is the Center Square here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Wake up with us here on YouTube each morning and get news clips and such by subscribing to our YouTube page. So make it happen. So obviously we're in the last month of the Illinois General Assembly legislative session. So we got 4 weeks for them to pass a budget. The governor proposed a almost $55 billion budget. That's the largest state spending plan in state history. There's a little bit of wiggle room in there, several $100 million of a budget surplus that the governor is proposing with his spending. But you have a whole host of other asks. And at the Capitol, some of you may have been there. I did meet Captain Mike at the Capitol yesterday, and it was jam-packed with people, all kinds of different groups there advocating for legislation. Many of them out there, nonprofit groups looking for more funding. There were groups saying that the governor's plan of reducing the line item for non-citizen health care costs should be restored. You had groups in the same camp saying that they also need to restore more funding for welcoming centers across the state. So a lot of non-citizen funding being advocated for. You have others there looking for higher rates to be paid to certain types of healthcare workers, and I'm sure that governing bodies all across the state as well are there with their hat out, including Chicago with Mayor Brandon Johnson there to talk to legislators. Johnson held a news conference. I was able to go, and one of the questions a reporter asked was about specifics on what kinds of revenue streams that Johnson is looking to bring about. He's talked for months about, quote, progressive revenue, because, of course, the city of Chicago has an estimated $1 billion, if not $1.5 billion budget deficit. They just took out a loan for $800 million that they're floating payments for several years without even making a principal payment on that. You've also got the teachers union contract. That's, $1.5 billion over several years. By the end of the contract, the average Chicago teacher will make $114,000 a year. So a lot of costs that the city of Chicago has, but the state of Illinois also, there's a lot of competing priorities. We're in the last 4 weeks. Will we see what happens? Not sure. But, of course, with all the costs that people have and they're coming to the state for your tax dollars, you also have the transit system that is in pretty bad shape. There's a fiscal cliff of more than $700 million that's been reported by 2026 if something's not done. So with that in the in the future here. You have others who are pushing for transit reform. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit of the back and forth with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson saying, hey, we need more funding for public transit, especially in Chicago.
My team, working with the Chicago Transit Authority, has been very clear about the importance of ensuring that, the region that generates 87% of ridership has to receive its fair share in funding.
So he's looking for, quote, fair share funding for the riders in Chicago. Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle talking about the reforms and some of the efforts to try to combine the various transit agencies like CTA and Metra and all these different agencies that, public transit. And here's Preckwinkle talking about, what kinds of reforms are possible, but also the funding that's necessary.
Northeastern Illinois is the economic engine of the state of Illinois, and a well-functioning public transportation system is essential to our economic growth and vibrancy. So that's been the priority of our team, and we are focused both on governance and more resources. We have dozens of appointing entities. Doesn't make sense to us, and we also believe if we're going to get state support for this, that the governor should have some appointments on our transit board.
So the makeup of whatever kind of consolidation could be, still we haven't seen the actual plan that would get passed. We've seen proposals, and there's been tons of hearings about this, trying to find a way to pay for that fiscal cliff, but at the same time have some reforms. And the governor several weeks ago, I think it was last week actually, talked about how you can do both at the same time. You can do funding with reforms on top in the same legislative session. You don't have to wait. So clearly that's going to be one of the big ticket items that we see just before legislative session ends at the end of May. But you had Republicans the day before. Johnson and Preckwinkle showed up saying that, listen, transit reform is going to happen, but there needs to be fairness for especially some of the suburbs and for the downstate area. Here is State Senator Don DeWitt, a Republican from St. Charles.
That $1.5 billion revenue stream is going to have to be generated. I think if we can get governance resolved, get the $770 million fiscal cliff resolved this session, and I think it can be done before the end of May, we can deal with the bigger problem down the road of how do we make the system better. But we need to reform the structure first so that the appropriate people have the authority to make the decisions they need to make to improve CTA, Metra, and PACE within the RTA mass transit system.
So DeWitt saying it is possible we're going to see that happen before the end of May. What it looks like, again, as somebody who's covered the State House for over a decade now, these are the big ticket issues that we're not necessarily get the finalized details until just before it goes onto the House floor or just before it goes onto the Senate floor. Just like the budget. So I fully anticipate we'll find out about what this is going to cost taxpayers and what the governance structure is going to look like for transit, but it's probably going to come either late night or early morning, just before they go and pass it. But back to, the idea of your tax dollars, right? Because all this, you're paying for it. You are the taxpayer in the state of Illinois, and you're paying for it. And Brandon Johnson, he says, there needs to be, quote, progressive revenue.
We have a flat income tax. That's a problem. Everybody knows that. It's a problem, right? There are too many corporate loopholes in this state that working people across this state don't get to benefit, because there's a special attention to a particular subgroup of corporations that have drained our system, right? And whether you are a non-for-profit in Peoria, or if you are a farmer, or if you're a community-based organization, or you're a school district, the way the trajectory is occurring, there's not going to be enough in the long run to respond to our retirement obligations and responsibilities, as well as the investments that the people of the state of Illinois, and particularly the city of Chicago, want us to make. And so we have to look at every single option on the table to ensure that we create an economic structure that benefits working people across this state.
Will there be another push to get a question on the ballot about changing the state's flat income tax to a, quote, progressive income tax? Don't know. We haven't really seen that proposal brought up in the State House again after it was killed by voters back in 2020, if you recall. The next month is going to be interesting, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you join us so you stay on top of what's going on with your tax dollars at the state of Illinois Capitol. I'll be there with the Center Square. We got a great team. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter, and wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus Daily each and every weekday morning right here on YouTube. One more segment. Strap in. This will be interesting. The live feed comments, if you're in there. See what you guys think about this one. And here we go. Illinois legislators advancing legislation to possibly let out violent criminals, to ban polystyrene single-use food containers, and even a task force to look at the impacts of migration due to climate change. No, not migration due to high taxes, migration due to climate change. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop here with the Center Square on YouTube each and every weekday morning. Go to thecentersquare.com where you can see a lot of these news stories and more all across the United States, but also here in Illinois. I am the associate editor for the Center Square, and I'm at the Capitol when they're in session bringing you the latest. So let's get right on into it. Yesterday in the Illinois Senate, they were advancing Senate bills. Some of these Senate bills had deadlines already, but they can waive those deadlines really anytime they want. So one bill in particular dealt with violent criminals that were convicted under the age of 21, and ultimately it would allow for these individuals to make motions for possible resentencing. Here's the bill's sponsor, Adrian Johnson, state senator, Democrat.
Senate Bill 248 would merely allow people who have had the Miller factors applied to their case, despite the Supreme Court's mandate that these factors must be considered in sentencing, to file a successive post-conviction petition and receive a constitutional review. That's it. And it's very simple. And
So she says it's a simple bill, allow for a post-conviction review, which could mean there could be steps taken to release them. State Senator Steve McClure yesterday, Republican from Springfield, said this is not a good idea.
Just so these people are there justly. They're there because their crimes were so bad, so horrific, that either as juveniles or under the age of 21, that the judge, after hearing the victim statements, after sifting through a sentencing hearing, decided that you did something so horrible, you should spend decades or more in prison. That's it. So the question for all of us is not whether or not these people are being held against their constitutional rights. The question is, do you want to release murderers, rapists, people that did stuff so bad that they were charged as adults and given massive sentences by judges who heard the evidence, who saw what they did, and who listened to the relevant testimony? There are already avenues to do this. The governor has incredible powers when it comes to clemency, and he can lessen sentences, he can pardon people, that sort of a thing. But at a time when we're seeing Chicago, yet again, the #1 murder capital of our country, unfortunately, is this the message that we want to send? That the issue is we've got too many people that have committed horrendous crimes that are actually being held accountable? Or do we want to say, no, if you do these horrendous crimes, you should be held accountable? And I think every once in a while, this chamber should stick up for the victims and their families.
And this measure cross the finish line, you could have victims' families ultimately have to relive a lot of the pain that they've encountered from what happened to their loved one. The measure passed the state Senate. A similar measure, but it's not the same, advanced to the House floor early in April 10th. State Representative Teresa Ma, she had a measure that was very, very similar to this. I think it went a little bit further than the Senate bill, but Ma's measure did not advance. It failed to get enough votes, even though the Democrats are in the vast majority of the Illinois House. And I think that this line of questioning from Republican State Representative Dan Ugasti for Teresa Ma's failed House bill really kind of got to the crux of why I think people decided to vote against it.
Does this also include crimes against children? If someone committed a crime against a child, would they be included in this as well?
They were children themselves when they were convicted.
I just want to know if this would include people who committed crimes against a child. That's all I was asking. Yes? Okay. I urge a no vote.
And shortly thereafter, in that debate, Ma's bill failed. I think it was like 54 to needs 61 to get across the finish line. So interesting to see the Senate with a more mild version advancing that. So we may actually hear that debate again in the Illinois House. Let's take a look now at back to the Senate from yesterday. You had a measure that essentially says by 2030, you can no longer purchase or sell polystyrene single-use food containers like those clamshells you get from the store. Actually, I had to take a picture yesterday for the news story, and I had a styrofoam clamshell Italian beef sandwich. So look at that. I mean, the clamshell, that 5 years from now, if this measure out of the Senate passes, you're not going to be able to, you still can get the Italian beef, but you won't be able to use the styrofoam container. This is State Senator Jill Tracy asking questions of the bill sponsor in the Senate about how this is going to be impacting small businesses. Yesterday's Senate floor action and go. Nope.
Does this also include crimes against children?
Let's do this one. There you go.
So anybody that dispenses any type of food in 5 years are going to be banned from using styrofoam, if I'm understanding correctly.
Senator Fine?
There are certain exceptions that are written into the legislation, like egg cartons, ice containers. And it's also important to note that it doesn't say that these companies can no longer pollute or produce polystyrene. It just says they cannot sell it here in Illinois.
Senator Tracy?
The study is going to...
I wanted to ask about the penalties. As I'm seeing it, the penalty is $1,000. Is that per container, per time that they would dispense food in styrofoam? How often is that $1,000 penalty to be applied?
And Fine, the senator sponsoring the legislation had to talk to some staff about that in particular, but ultimately it's a $1,000 fine after a warning.
Again, it's first a warning, but after 5 years, you're not going to be able to purchase the product in Illinois.
State Senator Don Harmon, the Senate president, he got up, held up a reusable coffee cup that he says a lot of people on their own accord are reusing coffee cups like these that you can wash, and it's hard shell, or you use it for coffee, water, whatever. And he says that things are changing. We're in an ever evolving world.
30 years ago in this chamber, if you looked around and you could see through the smoke, you would have seen countless 8-ounce white styrofoam coffee cups. The world is changing. We are moving beyond that and looking for something better. And many of us have made this decision in our own lives, and we try to abide by it. We're not perfect. But we're moving towards something new. So I applaud Senator Fine. This is a pro-business bill with the support of the restaurants and the retail merchants who are the most directly impacted. It's a 5-year phase-in. I've not seen anything that generous in legislative history that I can think of. This creates an incentive to be the builder of the next product.
So Harmon laying that out.
Some of the arguments
saying that this measure makes sense. Let's just go ahead and get it done. But that measure advanced out of the Senate. It's going to go to the Illinois House, where I imagine we're going to see a lot of more heated debate. And of course, we've got until the end of May for them to pass all of these things. Into the House chamber, this was actually from Tuesday afternoon, but House Energy Chamber Committee met to discuss Will Guzzardi's proposal to have a task force to tackle why people are moving. Are people migrating from one place to the other because of climate change? Here is Guzzardi talking with State Representative Blaine Wilhauer, and then State Representative Will Davis chiming in as well.
The goal of the task force is simply that we anticipate that there will be changes in population across the country and around the world, and we need to make sure that Illinois is prepared for the movement of the influx from people from outside of Illinois, as well as the population shifts within our state.
Is this task force going to study the outmigration as a result of some of our climate policies in the state, specifically the outmigration of good union jobs?
The task force is going to project, to the best of the ability of those who work on it, the possible migration trends that will result from climate change, not necessarily our state's policies per se, but climate and weather changes as a whole.
Well, Will, at least he'll be on one Will's side. Not, you know.
It's always good to be a little lighthearted there, but yeah. A task force to evaluate migration patterns because of climate change, but will it look at the migration patterns due to, I don't know, the efforts to close coal-fired power plants and all the high property taxes there are, and the business policies, and that'd be an interesting task force. Maybe, Republicans can create their own. I don't know. We'll keep watching what happens. All right, I get paid to go to the State House to watch these guys, so you don't have to, and you can wake up with me each and every weekday morning to get the latest. So we'll be back at it tomorrow to give you a review of what's going on at the Illinois State House. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the Center Square. Get the newsletter. Go to thecentersquare.com, sign up for that, and be here each and every weekday morning on YouTube. That's all I got for you today. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Appreciate everybody in the live chat, lively conversation there. Have a good day. Appreciate everybody. God, you guys are busy in there. Sometimes I try to go back and check out what you guys are talking about, but when I've got all these buttons and things, it's hard for me to see what you guys are doing. So keep it cool, all right? We'll be back at it tomorrow with the Center Square on YouTube. And for people who, aren't getting notifications via YouTube, go back to the Center Square's YouTube page, click that bell, and there might be a drop down that actually gives you, I want all notifications. Keep in mind, you'll get notifications anytime a video is uploaded. We've got the Center Square team across the country uploading all kinds of stuff, even stuff out of Washington, D.C. But if you're just looking for Illinois in Focus, just come to the YouTube page right at about 8 o'clock each and every weekday morning, and you'll see the latest live show live, or if I have to start it early, you'll see it after the fact. Get to the clips on the video page and more. Have a great Thursday. We'll be back at it tomorrow to wrap the week up. I'm Greg Bishop. Be safe.